This is Matt Hurt at Obsessive Viewer on Twitter.
This is Tiny at Obsessive Tiny on Twitter.
And this is ObsessiveViewer.com's The Obsessive Viewer Podcast. Welcome to The Obsessive Viewer. We're a weekly movie and TV podcast that covers a specific topic, be it genre, trope, movie, or show, each episode. You can find back episodes at ovpodcast.com, find the blog at ObsessiveViewer.com, and you can also subscribe to the subreddit at r/ObsessiveViewer. And if you want to help support the podcast, go to patreon.com/ObsessiveViewer, or you can simply leave us a rating and review on iTunes. It helps us out a ton. Now, Tiny, how's it going?
Oh, wonderful.
Nice. So do you want to talk about what we're doing today, or?
Yeah, we're doing a splice job today.
Nice.
Essentially.
Yeah.
That's a fun word, splice.
It is.
Don't get to use it often because we're not scientists.
Right. Speak for
or
yourself.
are we?
No.
You're an audio scientist.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, put it on your resume.
Sure,
So we have some recording from weeks ago that we recorded, and it's the audio quality is a little questionable at times.
Full disclosure, at the time of this recording, I haven't re-listened to that recording since I discovered how awful it was. So, I decided not to release that recording for a couple reasons. It's our episode that we record, a full episode we recorded the first week of March, and it was an Oscars reaction episode or breakdown episode after the Oscars, and a Deadpool review. And when I listened to it, it had a lot of static. I tried to clean it up, but it still had a little bit of static. And then just for various personal reasons, I wasn't in the right frame of mind to put in the effort to do all that.
Right.
So I just set it aside. And then the week before last, I think, I had actually taken a segment of that episode, the part of the Potpourri where I reviewed Stagecoach, and I spliced it into our episode 2 weeks ago, and it sounded pretty okay. So, as an experiment, we're going to have a hybrid, brief Potpourri episode / B-roll episode. So, we're going to have some new content for you here at the front end of this episode, and then we're going to fill it out with our breakdown of the Oscars and our review of Deadpool from 2 months ago. So,
yeah. It's unfortunate that it had to happen with that because Deadpool was so popular, and
right.
We liked it a lot. So
yep. So that's kind of the rundown for the episode. But before we get to our kind of brief potpourri, there's been a few news items that have popped up in the last few days that I kind of wanted to just kind of discuss on the podcast for before we get to our potpourri section. Okay, so for the first piece of news for the episode, this is actually something that caught me off guard personally. There's going to be a revival of the Twilight Zone made by the guy who made BioShock, the video games, Ken Levine. He's going to write and direct the pilot episode of the Twilight Zone revival, which it hasn't been said, but I think it's implied that it's going to be on CBS's All Access app, which is where the new Star Trek series is going to go.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so on paper, like, that sounds really interesting, and I'm really eager for it. Particularly I am, because I started a podcast about the Twilight Zone and anthology science fiction storytelling, which I am in the process of relaunching because it fell apart after September. I apologize for that, but I just didn't get a chance to get back into it. But I'm going to relaunch it soon with a new format and hopefully be able to stick with it in a better consistent schedule. But anyway, the kind of big thing about this Twilight Zone revival is that it's going to be an interactive show. So I guess the idea is that viewers will be able to alter the course of the story, like using the app or something like that. Just basically like a choose your own adventure kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a unique idea. Tiny, what do you think about it?
Yeah, it's a mixed bag. You know, really, they haven't been specific at all. They just said it's an interactive show.
Right.
Which is such a broad term. It could mean so many different things.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, I kind of hope they do the choose your own adventure kind of thing, because I think that makes sense. That seems like the only kind of thing that would really work. But who knows? I mean, they could be doing something really revolutionary here. I'm curious. I'm definitely very curious to see what it does.
Nice. Very nice. I am kind of on a more stubborn ground for this.
Okay.
I don't know. Something about it just doesn't feel right to me. I don't like the idea of it being an interactive thing. Like there have been, it's worked in the past with like Clue had different endings.
Yeah.
And that's a different case and everything. But, also I think that the DVD for, Final Destination 3 had like an interactive, like choose if the person should die or not, special feature. So it's not like, so I mean, this is ground that has been covered before in a certain, extent, I guess, or a certain, aspect. But I think that taking the brand of the Twilight Zone with this, I think that's my biggest, the point where I have the most, contention with it. Because, like, if they were to create a show, from scratch to do this, I would be interested in it as an experimental thing. Maybe it'll drive people to CBS's thing, assuming that it's going to be on the CBS app. But to have Twilight Zone, one of the big things about the show, the classic series, the classic Rod Serling series from the late 50s, early 60s, was that it was a platform for really genius science fiction writers to write for the show. And I'm thinking like Richard Matheson wrote most, okay, so Rod Serling wrote most of the episodes, like the vast majority of episodes. And then I think second under him was, with the amount of writing, was Richard Matheson, who wrote I Am Legend, and he's a very famous sci-fi writer. And I mean, I just feel like having an interactive story, or having a story that, you think of the most iconic Twilight Zone episodes. You think of, the one with William Shatner with the goblin on the plane. And then Time Enough at Last, where, Burgess Meredith and is the bookworm. And those are all, like, the most iconic moments of the Twilight Zone are all, like, they're fully realized stories and everything. But I feel like it would be a challenge to have a fully realized story when the different segments of each story are being branched out into different segments, and it's a branching story instead of a fully realized story. So I don't know. So
yeah, like it might kind of ruin the cohesiveness of the story.
Yeah, and it'll handicap the writers too.
Yeah, and plus, I mean, the Twilight Zone is already so unique.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's already such a, I don't know, it has this storytelling dynamic to it, where it's introduced. It's like you're about to enter the Twilight Zone. So It's like, you're watching a story, but it's so immersive that it captivates you anyways. And it's already just so good, and it's just iconic, and it's stuff that people have never seen before. It's those kind of stories. And so you don't necessarily need to put a spin on it.
Yeah, or like a gimmick.
A gimmick, really. Yeah. I mean, you could definitely call this a gimmick, I think.
Yeah.
It just doesn't, I don't think it needs that.
Right. And I haven't been reading, like, the reactions to it or anything, but I happen to know that the Twilight Zone fans are very, very rabid. Like, I in the first episode of Anthology, I made, the mistake of, stupidly, on my part, I made the mistake of mispronouncing Rod Serling's name as Rod Sterling.
Yeah.
And I prefaced it and everything, and I got a scathing review on iTunes for it, so. But anyway.
Yeah.
I'm over it, whatever.
Right.
No, but yeah, so I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I don't know. How'd you feel about the BioShock games?
Great stories. Which is in the spirit of the Twilight Zone.
Right.
These very, especially the characters are very mysterious and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a storytelling technique that lends itself well to the universe of the Twilight Zone.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I have a lot of confidence in Ken Levine as a storyteller.
Right.
And his ability to create something awesome. Cause that's what BioShock was. It was very, again, unique. Not to overuse that word, but, kind of a one of a kind story. So I have confidence in him. We'll see what he can do with the series.
Right. I haven't played BioShock in, a long time, but I enjoyed it. And I was always really interested to go back and play the last one, I think.
Yeah. When I was playing it, I only played the first one, like half the second one. I enjoyed the story. I enjoyed it more as a story than I did the game.
Nice.
Not that I didn't like playing it or anything, but
right.
The story was the best part.
Yeah. So we'll see what Ken Levine comes up with, and we'll probably report back. And hopefully I'll be talking about on Anthology because I really need to reboot that podcast.
Cool.
It's been a long time. So anyway, the next piece of news we have, we're not gonna spend too much time on this one, but the first picture of Elizabeth Banks as Rita Repulsa in the new Power Rangers movie was released, and
more classic sci-fi.
Yeah. It was actually all of our news is but Jesus. Yeah, so Tiny, what was your reaction to the photo of Elizabeth Banks? And how did you feel about her being cast in the beginning? You weren't really a big Power Rangers fan, were you?
Oh, I was. Yeah, I loved the show. And I wanted the Megazord toy bad. But it was like $100. I don't know if you remember that.
I don't know. I remember one year I got like a ton of Power Ranger toys.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't know. I wanted it so bad and I never got it.
Oh, wow. That sucks.
Anyways, yeah, I love the show. And when I saw the picture of Elizabeth Banks, I was like, Rita Repulsa's not supposed to be hot.
Right.
Because Elizabeth Banks is gorgeous.
Yeah.
And, when they casted her, I was like, really? That's kind of weird. I figured they'd do some makeup and something crazy, but she's got like a low-cut top on and a lot of skin, and I was like, she's hot. It's like she's looking at me seductively. Like,
right, yeah.
It was just a weird feeling thinking about a Power Rangers villain.
Yeah.
So, pretty skeptical of the project overall based just on that picture.
Right. It also made me laugh because all I thought was like, wow, so the first official picture of the villain in the Power Rangers movie, Rita Repulsa, does not look anything like Rita Repulsa. It's like the villain in X-Men Apocalypse looks more like a Power Rangers villain than the Power Rangers villain
That's funny.
in the Power Rangers movie. And I don't know. I think that it is a little scantily clad, and it's a little too much skin for what the show or what the movie should be capturing. Assuming that it's, going to be true to the show. But, I don't know. I think that the physical aspect of it, the visual, the way she's made up and everything, I think that's going to be secondary to her performance itself.
Yeah, that's true.
Because I'm thinking of her in the Hunger Games movies. Like, she was very animated, and she was very good at playing that role. I think that if she has the right direction and they're going for like an honest portrayal, or not honest, but true to the source material portrayal of Rita Repulsa, I think that she will nail it. But the picture doesn't really inspire confidence.
No, not so much.
Yeah.
The show was kind of wholesome.
Yeah, I guess so.
In a way, the characters weren't really that flawed, I guess. I don't know. I wasn't really into character development when I was 9.
Right.
But it was, I don't know.
It was pretty straightforward. It had like some light like teen romance subplots and stuff like that, and
the Power Rangers did beat some out of some monsters, so that's not exactly wholesome. But it condones violence.
Right. But it wasn't like they weren't half naked and.
Yeah, right. Yeah. That's the point I was making. Yeah, right. It wasn't sexy.
Right. So and then so that's that piece of news, and then we're going to kind of end the news segment with a kind of a big news item that came up. So James Cameron announced that there's going to be 4 more Avatar sequels. Like, the plan is to have Avatar 2 come out around Christmas 2018, with Avatar 3 coming out in 2020, Avatar 4 in 2022, and Avatar 5 in 2023.
Good God.
Yeah, and this is his quote about the process of doing it, and okay. Here's the quote. Quote: "It's not back to back. It's really all one big production. It's more the way you would shoot a miniseries. So we'll be shooting across all Avatar scripts simultaneously. So Monday I might be doing a scene from movie 4, and Tuesday I'm doing a scene from movie 1. We're working across essentially 8 hours of story. It's going to be a big challenge to keep it all fixed in our minds, exactly where we are across the story arc at any given point. It's going to probably be the most challenging thing I've ever done. I'm sure the actors will be challenged by that as well. It's like, no, this person hasn't died yet, so you're still in this phase of your life. It's a saga. It's like doing all 3 Godfather films at the same time."
That sounds awful. Just awful.
Yeah. Tiny,
how is that a positive environment for, creativity?
I really don't know.
Jeez.
I mean, okay, so James Cameron, I've been outspoken about him. I'm not a big James Cameron fan. Like, I recognize that he is a visionary and that he has pushed the boundaries of the medium with pretty much every project he's had. I've never really connected to his storytelling in his movies. I really like The Abyss, and I really like Aliens. I need to go back and revisit The Terminator and T2, but like, as far as like Titanic and Avatar, like, and even True Lies, I wasn't too crazy about the story, but just the storytelling, I just didn't connect to it at all. Like, and I feel like we can talk more about Avatar here in a minute, but Avatar was just, I just didn't like the movie. And so this is alarming. It's, I don't know. It's, like you said, Tiny, it sounds like an awful idea.
It sounds industrious.
Yeah.
Like they're putting movies on a production line.
Right, yeah.
As opposed to, it doesn't sound artistic to me.
Right.
I'm not a filmmaker, but jeez.
Yeah. And there's been a lot of like discussion around the internet recently, or in the last year or so, about the cultural impact of Avatar. Like, the Slash Filmcast brought it up a lot over the course of their time, and then like I think around the time that what's it called, Star Wars came out, it was in the cultural conversation. And there was a tweet, Tiny, that I kind of want to pitch this to you. Can I have that for a second?
Absolutely.
Okay, the tweet was, "Hey, right now, try to quote Avatar, the highest grossing movie of all time. Quote any line or name 2 characters, no cheating." That was from Dana Schwartz on Twitter. Off the top of your head, Tiny, can you?
I mean, I can. It took me like a minute, but I can think of a quote and name 2 characters.
Go right ahead.
Natiri and Sully was the main character.
Yeah,
I think so. That was his name.
Yeah,
Jesus.
Yeah, it was.
That's bad. And then I always thought it was a really stupid line when the one Indian doctor like looked at his brain and he was like, "Wow, that's a gorgeous brain." I was like, "You sound so pretentious." But I don't know. That's the line that I chose to commit to memory.
Yeah,
so that kind of speaks volumes of the point that guy was trying to make.
Right. The woman, Dana.
Oh, the woman. Okay,
yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. I'm not her. So
sorry, Dana.
Anyway, so how did you, before we get into talking about this crazy plan, what did you think of Avatar itself? Because you were a defender. You brought the Blu-ray so I could borrow it.
Yeah, I liked it, but so many criticisms of it are so warranted, and I agree 100% that it's not very well constructed, and it's the dialogue that James Cameron comes up with is just hashtag WTF most of the time. So he's indefensible in those categories, but like you said, he's a visionary, and from a visual standpoint, it's an incredibly impressive film. But so was Transformers. Right. So I mean, it's like that just you can only stand on certain laurels for so long, and
right.
James Cameron. It seems to be kind of a one-trick pony in that respect. Yeah,
and it seems like he's just kind of he's intentionally just jumping in, and he's committing the rest of his career to the Avatar universe and Pandora and all that, which, I mean, and I want to be clear about this. I'm not a fan of Avatar. I just flat out don't like the movie. I agree the visuals are incredible, and I thought that the 3D effects in the theater were unlike anything I'd ever seen up to that point. But God, I just did not like the story. The story was derivative and boring,
formulaic.
Way formulaic.
Yeah.
And just really just stupid. It was just not, I just did not like the movie.
As were all the characters.
Right. Oh, yeah.
One-dimensional.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So it has so many problems and everything, but it's also like, I mean, James Cameron is the guy who made Aliens and T2. Like, he has created two of the, if not the, flat out just the best science fiction sequels of all time.
Yeah.
And here he has a science fiction sequel.
Right.
And so he has a track record for this. And I can kind of respect on paper the fact that he is basically, I think I saw a tweet from, I want to say it was maybe Matt Singer, but a tweet somewhere when this news hit that he's basically creating his own cinematic universe.
Yeah.
And I can kind of respect that. Like, he's created this playground that he's created the sandbox that he's just going to play in for the rest of his career. And I mean, cool. I hope that it yields some good movies.
As do I. I bet Sam Worthington and what's her name?
Zoe Saldana?
Zoe Saldana, yeah. They just must have dollar signs in their eyes. 'Cause seriously.
Yeah. Ugh. But we'll see if and when they come out. I don't... and that's another thing. Okay, so I've made this argument before on the podcast, I'm sure, but by the time that this movie comes out, like, it's a vastly different cinematic landscape than it was back in, 2009?
Yeah, I was just looking at that. I was like, this came out in 2009, didn't it?
Yeah, so the first sequel is going to come out in 2018 if it doesn't get pushed back again, which has been getting pushed back since 2014, 2013?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. So if you think to 2009, Marvel Studios just came out with the Hulk, the Incredible Hulk, and Iron Man. Like, this was right on the cusp of this current huge trend of comic book shared universes and all this stuff. Like, I mean, I need to cross check this, but when Avatar came out, there was only one version of Spider-Man on the screen.
Yeah.
One universe or one iteration of Spider-Man.
Right.
And now, as of right now, we're about to see our third interpretation of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
On the screen in Civil War. Who knows how many more there's going to be before 2018?
Exactly.
So like, we have that. We have Marvel. We have DC coming out. However they're going to adjust after Batman v Superman, if they are going to adjust, I don't know. But
yeah.
So we have DC, Marvel, Star Wars coming out every year. The latest, whatever the latest young adult dystopian adaptation is. So I just don't know if the calendar can fit another giant Smurf movie.
Cat Smurfs.
But I don't know. And again, like, it's James Cameron. He's doing something unique. And even though, I don't know, I don't really know I don't have confirmation on this or not, but I think I read somewhere that he was writing the Aliens script, like, while he was working on T2 or while he was writing T2 or something like that. Or I think I don't know, he was writing two of his biggest scripts at the same time, pretty much simultaneously.
Wow.
So, I don't know.
I'm kind of curious to see what the public reaction will be, because, like you said, all that, third phase of the Marvel Universe is kicking on, and it'll be in the full throes by the time that comes out. Who knows what's going to happen with DC? I think the lukewarm reaction to Batman v Superman is going to have some interesting effects on that.
Right.
Star Wars, I don't know. I don't know if people are ever going to get fatigued on Star Wars, but
right.
People might be ready for something different. And it's not necessarily going to be different, but it's going to be like, oh, I remember Avatar. Avatar was kind of cool. Let's see what else is going on in that universe.
Okay, Tiny. Is anyone actually going to say Avatar was kind of cool?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
There are. I mean, there's a lot of people.
I'm more just being a dick, but
yeah, I know. There's a lot of people who hated it, and but I'm gonna go see it in the theater.
Oh, I'm gonna see it in the theater too.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
I
wouldn't go so far as to say I'm excited for it, but
right.
I don't know. When I see the first trailer, I might have a complete turnaround. We'll see.
Right, yeah. And I mean, of course, all of this is conjecture at this point, purely conjecture at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But it'll be interesting to see what comes of it and everything. And I'm sure that it's going to make a lot of money. But the question is, like, the first sequel is going to make a ton of money because James Cameron, Avatar, see what the big deal is. It's going to get a lot of publicity and everything.
Yeah.
But I wonder how much it's going to make in subsequent sequels, because this is a huge, huge risk financially.
Right.
Yeah, but I mean,
James Cameron's kind of like, isn't he kind of like George Lucas in that he basically makes independent movies?
I think so.
So isn't he like pouring all his own money into these?
Yeah.
Jeez. I mean, that's gotta be like,
right.
That's gotta be like $500-600 million
probably
to make 4 movies.
I can't even imagine. I mean, I'm
Wow.
sure it's even
It's probably more than that.
It's a lot more than that.
Yeah. Wow.
I don't know if he's funding it all completely himself. But, I mean, he's putting up a lot of it himself, I'm sure. But
right.
But yeah. But I don't know. Even if they're bad, at least we have The Abyss and True Lies on Blu-ray. We don't.
We don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Priorities.
And yeah.
It's just, God.
He should put his money into that.
Yeah,
digitally remaster The Abyss.
Absolutely.
And release it on Blu-ray.
Right.
I'd buy it.
I would too.
I'd pay $30-40 for it.
Yeah, that might be, I don't know, that might actually be my favorite James Cameron movie.
Oh, that is mine.
Nice.
Without question, yeah. It's been mine for a long time.
Nice.
Yeah.
So anyway, we'll check back in 2018 when that happens.
Can't wait.
Yeah. Okay, so that's our news segment, for this, weird hybrid episode. And before we get to kind of the Oscar breakdown, recording, and Deadpool review later in the episode, we're just going to do a brief kind of potpourri segment where we're each going to take a turn, talk about something we've watched or something we're looking forward to, stuff like that. It's called Potpourri. It's what the tagline for it is: whatever we want, as long as it smells good. And we each have a few things to bring up.
Yes, sir.
And I think I'm going to start first, Tiny, if you don't mind. Okay, so I saw Hardcore Henry.
Yes.
Yes. This movie had gotten a lot of, I don't know if it got a lot of press before it came out, but it was talked about because it was a very unique project. The entire movie is from the first person's perspective, like a first person shooter kind of thing, and it's about Henry, this guy who wakes up after he wakes up being put back together, and he has some super soldier abilities. And it's basically him going from place to place, killing a bunch of people, and trying to get to a certain point, basically. Charlton Copley is in it, in a supporting role that's actually kind of makes the movie for me.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's kind of hard to talk about this movie, because I will say up front that the action choreography, set pieces, and the way that the camera moved in this perspective as the action was happening on screen was really very refreshing and really kind of cool to see, and handled really well and kind of fascinating at some points, because I mean, just like my brain struggled to comprehend how exactly they were able to do certain things. Having said that, the big selling point for this movie is that it's like a first-person shooter. And unfortunately, it's like a first-person shooter from like maybe 10, 15 years ago when video game developers didn't give two shits about story.
Oh, that's a bummer.
Yeah, and this, I mean, so it's about a 95-minute movie, and it's maybe an hour into the movie where we get any kind of answer or any kind of plot details, really. And it's quite literally like he's, in the early parts of the movie, goes outside and he has a phone that a character's given to him, and it's literally, he looks at the phone and it's like a map in a first-person shooter where it shows you where you need to go. And it's just, like, I understand, I don't know if this is the intention or not, but I understand if they were going for, like, oh, this is like a first-person shooter video game and everything. I can respect that because it captured that experience very well. The problem was that you can get away with not having a story in a first-person shooter in a video game because it's an interactive thing and you're controlling the movements and everything. You have that kind of story or that kind of connection formed in your brain with it. When you're just watching people do some crazy stuff on screen in this format, but you don't really have that much of a story to tether to. There's a little bit there. There's a bit of a setup here. But I mean, you don't have any context for why the villain is the villain or how the villain has these kind of telekinetic powers, it's a very bizarre kind of concept for a movie. And I'm of the thinking that when you take something or take a staple or take something that is so intrinsically tied to another medium, such as video games with this first-person camera technique and everything, and you adapt it to the film medium, and this is kind of ironic that we were just talking about James Cameron, you need to adhere to the film rules and have like a narrative to carry you through because
you have to adapt.
You do, yeah. And it's just, I don't know, it got to the point where while a lot of the stuff going on screen was very cool and visually impressive, I just did not care what was going on. Yeah, and it's very like misogynistic and everything, and it doesn't treat women well in the movie, or anything like that, which is probably another callback to the video game format that it's aping, basically.
Yeah.
So I don't know. The way that I came away from it thinking this movie was a perfectly okay, put it on Netflix in the background when I'm editing the podcast in my living room kind of movie. Because I don't need to see the sound or anything, and it can look really cool. And another thing that kind of bugged me is that when I say that it hits every beat of, or it hits certain beats of the first-person shooter video game genre, it really does that, and it didn't really bother me that much until there's one scene in particular that, like up until this point they'd been doing some unique stuff. There was some very cool set pieces and everything, but then there was a scene where it's clearly like aping like a very iconic or very famous first-person shooter. One of the Call of Duty games, there's a ghillie suit involved. And there's a sequence like that, that's similar to a level in a Call of Duty game. And it's to the point where like they make a very overt homage to it by copying like an actual like pretty much copying verbatim like the scene of one of them. Like there's a scene in the video game where you and a non-playable character are walking through an abandoned building and you're looking around and like they copy that camera movement exactly, and it didn't sit right with me. Something about it was just like, I don't know, it felt too much like a video game at that point.
That's a shame.
But Charlton Copley really stole the show in it. He plays a mysterious character who keeps popping up as different archetypes or different types of people.
Okay.
So he has a lot of range in it, and it's just so much fun to see him play. Like he plays like a hippie, and he plays like a couple different types of people. It's really unique and interesting. Yep, and also a very fun use of "Don't Stop Me Now" by Queen.
Nice.
But I think Shaun of the Dead still used it better.
I was gonna say that's a little derivative.
Yeah, a little bit, but. I mean, seeing that cut to an action scene is going to be fun any day. So that's Hardcore Henry. I think it kind of left theaters pretty quickly, but I recommend checking it out, I guess, as a curiosity piece.
Okay, yeah, I definitely am super intrigued by it. Yeah.
Let me know what you think when you see it, because it's okay. I don't know.
I had a theory that it might kind of its uniqueness might cause it to take off. kind of like the Saw movies did.
Right.
Where it's like, this is kind of cool, and the studio just overproduced the crap out of it and made, 6 sequels.
Right.
And people were just sick of it, but there was just enough of a fan base to keep spending money on it, so they kept making more. I thought it might have that effect, but... It
had the potential to do that, but... Yeah. I don't know, and I will say that I did not feel like motion sickness or anything like that, and I don't usually do that. Like, I'm a fan of found footage movies, but I didn't think that it was any worse than a found footage movie, visually speaking.
I thought it was a cool idea for a movie.
Yeah.
I'll definitely check it out.
Yep. So, Tiny, what do you have for Potpourri? And can I ask you, when you were watching this, were you using 10% of your brain or the full 100?
I don't even know if I have the ability to use 10% of my brain. But yeah, so if you couldn't tell by the reference, I watched the movie Lucy, finally, which came out 2 years ago. It's like 2014, I want to say. Yeah. But I'm a defender of Luc Besson, or Luc Besson, if you're from France, because I believe he is French. So, The Professional is one of my favorite movies, without question. Top 10er for me. I love that movie. I think The Fifth Element is super underrated. And so I'm just a defender of Luc Besson. He has a very distinct style that sets him apart from other like action adventure type directors. And I think he's great. I think he makes good movies. And I was hoping Lucy was going to be one of those. Just to put it in the broadest terms, it's okay.
Really?
It's kind of a fun idea for a movie. Unfortunately, it's kind of been done before. The movie Limitless with
Did that
Bradley
come out
Cooper.
before or after Lucy?
It came out before.
Okay.
So that's a similar plot. There's this drug that enhances you, and it's used to different effect in Limitless. It's more of an intellectual based advancement, but in Lucy's more, I guess it's also intellectual, but it's physical. There's all this action that happens and everything. So it's used to different effect, but it was just too soon. It was too soon after the Limitless movie came out, and I think it kind of got lost in the shuffle because of that.
Okay.
But still, it had some cool ideas in it. The whole, I'm pretty sure you mentioned this before on the podcast, but the whole idea that we only use 10% of our brains it's just factually incorrect. It's
right.
It's a misnomer, it's a misunderstood concept because we don't actually only use 10% of our brains. I think what people are trying to say with that is that our brains don't have the ability to use 100% of our abilities at the same time.
Okay.
So like you can't, it's the whole concept of trying to rub your stomach while you pat your head. Like your brain can't do 100 things at once. That's kind of what that's trying to say. Is that most people can only use 10%. Matt just tried to rub his stomach and pat his head for everyone at home. That premise right there kind of hurts the movie in a way, and I get why people were frustrated with that.
Right.
But
and I don't see, and I'm of the thinking with that, like I make a lot of jokes about it.
Yeah.
But it's mostly like I don't have a problem with it. Like it's a movie anyway. Like I'm not going to argue, like I'm not gonna, like it's a fictional movie. I understand that, but my kind of problem with it was that was so ingrained in the promotions for it that it just rubbed me the wrong way. So I think that's where I come from with that.
Yeah. But I don't know. There were some cool scientific principles in it, and it kind of explores the idea of, what biological evolution is like, and how humans are going to interact with technology, and it kind of has these interesting themes and philosophical ideas in it that are, I think they're depicted relatively well. They're a little sloppy and a little ham-fisted, but they're cool ideas, and I ultimately like the direction that the movie takes and how it ends and everything. It's a very the ending's a little too sudden for me. I would have liked to seen it explored a little bit further, like an extra 5 or 10 minutes on the end of the movie. But it had plenty of flaws. There's tons of dialogue issues in the movie, and Morgan Freeman's character was super shallow, just not really developed well at all. Just really another character to bounce the main character off. It just wasn't very fulfilling in that respect. Couple moments here and there where he was good. Not to discredit Morgan Freeman, but just the way the character was constructed.
Okay.
But I don't know. And there's always cool action in a Luke Besson movie. And he definitely got some of that in this movie. But it was unique in the fact that it wasn't just all about blowing crap up. The main character was relatable and was definitely someone he came to care about throughout the whole movie. And I don't know. I kind of respected some of the choices they made.
That's cool.
But ultimately, I'd probably give it like maybe a 6.5, maybe just a 6 out of 10, if that.
Okay.
And that's being pretty generous. I think a lot of people would probably put it more towards a 5.
Okay.
But who knows? It's kind of cool.
Yeah. I've always meant to circle back and check it out because I didn't really have too much of a desire to see it in the theater, but then I heard some pretty positive stuff about it, and I just never got around to it. It's a 6.4 out of 10 on IMDb, the user rating. So
I'm right there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's Lucy, and I will probably check it out eventually. But
yeah,
don't hold your breath, guys.
I was a little bit annoyed by Scarlett Johansson's performance. She kind of she went down the kind of like robotic path.
Really?
It was a little distracting to me, and just kind of an obvious choice to make. Mm-hmm. I would have preferred. I much preferred Mila Jovovich in The Fifth Element. A very fish out of water character. I would have preferred a performance more like that, as opposed to what she kind of went with. But whatever.
Do you think I'd like The Fifth Element? I've never seen it.
You've never seen The Fifth Element?
I've never seen The Fifth Element,
okay.
And our friends Molly and Yuri always give me crap for it.
I haven't. I wish I would have brought it because I have it on Blu-ray.
You should have.
It's a good movie.
Yeah,
it's underrated.
Okay, I think it might be on Netflix or something. I started watching it at one point, and it was a lot more cheesy and campy than I expected it to be.
It is, but there's tons of heart underneath all that.
Really,
there really is. Yeah.
Maybe I'll give it another shot.
Cool.
So the next piece of potpourri, or the next potpourri thing that I'm going to bring up is I'm going to pull a tiny. It's a documentary.
Hey.
Yeah. So this documentary came out last year. It's called Back in Time. It's about Back to the Future, the legacy of Back to the Future, the Back to the Future trilogy, and the fans of the movies and
awesome.
The impact on people that the movies made. And it's a very well done documentary. It's kind of a, I don't want to say puff piece, but it's a very positive, it doesn't go into, it's not an analysis of the filmmaking or an analysis of what went on, anything. It's all around a celebration of the movie or of the franchise, really. And having said that, it's such a joy to watch it. 'Cause it's, you think okay, well, this documentary is going to be 2 hours of people just circle jerking about Back to the Future and Marty McFly and Doc Brown, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's just about people's love of this thing, and it's really intoxicating to see these people whose lives revolve around this one thing, or how this one thing has influenced their lives on such a deep level. Mm-hmm. It's just so charming and so great to see on screen. They go to a couple conventions and stuff like that, and celebrations, and they show people that have a whole segment on the DeLorean and stuff like that, icons from the movies and everything. It's just a really fun documentary. And the whole time I was thinking I think Back to the Future might be my favorite movie.
Nice.
But yeah, it's just, that's pretty much it that I have to say about that.
Yeah. I have that in my queue. I haven't watched it yet.
Really? Wow. I saw a documentary and you didn't. That is awesome.
Yeah.
No, it's, I recommend it. It's, especially if you love Back to the Future, obviously. It's well worth checking out.
Okay. Cool.
Yep. So what do you got for us next?
Up next, I have I watched the 2 Mockingjay movies,
Nice.
which that's the third book they decided to split into 2 movies.
Right.
Money grab. So yeah, I actually read the whole book series before I saw the movies, before any of the movies came out. And I actually really liked the first book. I thought it was great. But then the 2 sequels, I just think Suzanne Collins just didn't have. It read like she didn't have a conclusion in mind. She didn't. She pointed all her characters in the story in a certain direction, and didn't know how to continue them on that path. That's what it felt like to me. Especially the third book was just. Oh man, it felt like they were running in circles. That's what it felt like. And unfortunately that feeling also transferred over to the movies. I was completely unsatisfied with the last 2 movies. But the silver lining is I was expecting it because I didn't like the last book.
Right.
It really just, it felt like everything was just treading water. And I can understand that, because it's hard to drive a story and round out your characters. But you should be able to come to a conclusive ending, and this story was ripe for a huge climax.
Right.
It's literally it's a war. We're talking about a war, a physical war, and a war of ideas. There's all this propaganda involved. There's the revolution, the revolutionary side, the rebels, and the totalitarian government. There's all these ideas that try to sway the public to a certain way.
Right.
So it's a war of ideas and a physical shoot 'em up, kill people war. So that's just grounds that's grounds for a huge climax, and it just does not happen.
Right.
In the books or the movie. And it's really disappointing. There's even a point at the end of the movie where you literally have troops coming together and they're about to, fire off everything. And we're watching this from the perspective of Katniss Everdeen, the primary character, and she gets knocked out unconscious. And so we missed the entire final climax. Like literally, it'd be like the Soviets storming Washington D.C. in the 1950s. You know what I mean? It's this huge epic battle, and we barely see any shots fire off or anything. And it's just like, I don't know. I just did not. It just was such an unbalanced story. And by this point, Katniss Everdeen's not a very likable character. She's just a pain in the ass, and she basically just gets lucky a bunch of times. She has a bunch of people looking out for her because they care about her for some reason, and these people die for her. And it's just like, why? She's really not that cool. I mean, she's nice to look at. Jennifer Lawrence is beautiful, but I don't know. I just didn't get that. And that started in the first movie, but I was able to look past it because it's really cool. But I don't know. By the fourth movie, the third and especially the fourth movie, I was just like, I don't care about Katniss Everdeen anymore.
Yeah,
she's just a terrible person, I think.
Yeah, I think I watched Mockingjay Part 2 in December, and I want to say in our first extended potpourri from this year. I don't remember the exact episode, but it's back in January. I talked about it briefly. I didn't really talk in depth about it. But my perspective on it, because in the lead up to it, obviously I'd rewatched the entire series. Or the entire franchise, and I hadn't read. I've read the first book. That was like back in 2012, but I hadn't read the other 2 books. And after watching Catching Fire, I immediately thought like, I can actually get behind them splitting the third book into 2 movies because the world of Panem changes significantly or at least Katniss's perspective of it changes significantly at the end of Catching Fire, to the point that I would argue that they needed that that 1 movie buffer before the finale to adequately set up this new dynamic and this new the rebellion and revolution and everything.
Mm-hmm.
That was my thought going into the last two movies. And yeah, the dialogue was kind of on the nose throughout a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of my big problems with it, and also it squandered the runtime afforded by these two movies, because that first movie is such a drag. It's all set up for the last act, and by the end of it, by the actual conclusion for these characters, I just didn't really care. I didn't care who Katniss ended up with. I didn't care what happened to the characters, and I thought that one of the biggest events to happen toward the end of the last movie, I feel like that was really underplayed and really just did not, it was too sudden to have a reaction to.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was wasted there too. However, I liked Katniss as a character, especially after Catching Fire, or even probably during Catching Fire and then after, because I don't think you're giving her quite enough credit as a character, because she was selected, she became a symbol basically, and throughout the second movie it's like them trying to, the government trying to destroy this symbol, and then throughout the last two movies it's kind of like, if memory serves, it's kind of like it's them trying to make her more than a symbol and make her an icon for this rebellion, and it's her not knowing her place in this rebellion or anything. And I liked that dynamic a lot. I don't think I don't think they handled it well, but I liked that, on the surface at least, that she's thrust into this. It's really just a play on the reluctant hero trope, but
yeah,
I thought that it was an effective setup for it, but execution wise it wasn't that good.
Okay. She was annoyingly reluctant. I don't know. Basically, one of my problems with the characters, there's these two guys that are basically in love with her, the whole love triangle thing, and I just kind of want to be like, why? She's really not that interesting. I mean, I don't know. And all these people care about her and stuff, and I guess they're viewing her from a certain perspective, just as a symbol or as a leader, and I can understand why they would adore her for that, but I don't know. I never really got behind that character very much.
Sure.
I'll give some credit to Josh Hutcherson in the last couple flicks. He wasn't amazing or anything,
right.
But he had a tough job. He had a tough tightrope to walk, and it's hard to play someone who's like crazy or like detached from reality and have been through an intense trauma and are questioning everything. That's difficult to do, and I think he did it relatively well.
Right.
Again, not Oscar worthy or anything, but I was curious how he was going to handle that. I don't know. I think it would have been interesting to see. It would have been more interesting to see the true, real Peter Malark in the last two movies instead of the shell of what he once was, or something. Just him reacting to everything would have been a little more interesting.
Yeah, I think
I don't know.
Yeah, I think he did well enough with what. I think he did well enough. I don't think he's a great actor at all. Like you said.
Yeah, he's okay.
The first two movies, I think he was distractingly bad.
Really?
Yeah, especially opposite Jennifer Lawrence, because even in Blockbuster, Jennifer Lawrence, she's a talented actress.
Oh yeah.
But I just felt like the last two just didn't do anything for me.
Gotcha. That's fair enough.
Yep. And then last thing I'll say about it is that I liked in the last movie some of the concepts of it were kind of okay. And I liked that action sequence in the, I guess, tunnels, the sewer.
That was scary.
Yeah, it was scary. It was frightening. It was definitely creepy, and I thought it was done well. It was a little, just a tad bit incoherent in places, because I didn't know who the hell was doing what. But I liked it. Like, it was a refreshing change of pace throughout compared to the rest of the movie.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else on?
No. Pretty underwhelmed by all of it.
All right. So check back next week when Tiny talks about the Divergent series.
I did mention, was it last year? I think Catching Fire. Was that the second movie?
Of Divergent?
No, of...
Mockingjay Part 1.
Right, but what's the second movie? Is that Catching Fire?
Yeah, Catching Fire's the second movie.
The second movie, okay. I can't keep it all straight.
Right.
That made my top 10. That movie's good.
Right,
I really liked that one.
Oh, yeah.
I liked everything about that one. But, man, it just... The first movie I didn't care for, and then these two, yeah. But that second movie was pretty cool. I liked that one a lot. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, I enjoyed the second movie too.
Yeah.
So moving on, I am going to do something a little bit different, or not different, but before I talk about these next two movies that I'm just going to kind of group together, even though they don't really have much to do with each other. But before I do that, I'm going to talk about Amazon Prime, which I actually probably should have brought this up in the news. Amazon Prime recently announced that they're going month to month. Like, they're going to offer the Amazon Prime video service separately. I think it's going to be like $8.99 per month. Which previous to this, like, the only way you could get Amazon Instant Streaming is if you had an Amazon Prime account, which is something I personally think is worth it because it's $99 for a year of free 2-day shipping.
Yeah.
and their entire video platform, which I think has a pretty good selection.
Mm-hmm.
And everything. But they're doing month to month now, and just as a brief aside, it's funny to me that, like, I tweeted about this, but them going monthly and letting you pay monthly for the streaming, it's kind of really long overdue.
Yeah.
Because at least for me, like, back in January when my account renewed, I was like kind of scrambling to make sure, like, do I have $99 that I can just spare for this year of video service?
Mm-hmm.
While I also have Netflix and Hulu to go from and everything. Like, if times were tight, I just would not I would not pay the $99, and who knows when I would be able to do it down the line. So I think it's smart for them to go month to month like this. I think it's even though I think it's overdue, I think it's incredibly clever of them to do it at this time, because Netflix is about to increase their monthly price for, I think, like 13 million people, including me. The people that are that were grandfathered into the $7.99 price per month, they're going to raise it to, I think $9.99 or something. They're going to raise it $2.
Right.
And so that's happening. It's just happening automatically. And I mean, if people are pinching their pennies or they're mad about it, I think that it's funny that Amazon is coming out with something that's at Netflix's current pricing point. I think that's just a very strategic way to do it, or to handle that. And then I also heard, I didn't actually read the article, but I think on Hypable.com they posted something that I really should have read, but apparently there's a rumor that Netflix is going to start offering downloadable stuff. So which is funny because, like, Amazon has this feature. So if Netflix goes through with this, it will be similar to what Amazon has. What Amazon currently has is you can download anything on, anything on their instant viewing thing. You can download it to your tablet or anything like that. So theoretically, if you're going on a trip, you can load up your tablet with a lot of stuff from Amazon Prime, watch it offline on the plane, and you're done. Because you have Amazon Prime.
It's a very nice feature. I've used it a few times.
Right. It's very cool.
Yeah.
And so the rumor is that Netflix is going to have that come up at some point.
That's awesome.
Possibly. Potentially. I don't know.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, so having said all of that, there's an interesting thing that I went through on Amazon Prime. So recently I've been going through a Stephen King reading kick. I've been rereading the Dark Tower series. I've talked about that before. And then I just recently read for the first time Misery. And as I am wont to do with books that I read, I want to see the adaptation. The movie Misery was not, oddly enough, it wasn't available to rent on Google Play, which is my go-to rental service. And it wasn't available streaming anywhere except for on Amazon, but only under their the Stars add-on subscription.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what Amazon and Hulu does this too with like Showtime and stuff. But on Amazon you can add a subscription to Stars on there for I think an additional $7.99 a month. And then they also have Showtime available there too, for like $8.99 a month or something like that. But what was kind of neat is that you can get a free 7-day trial of the Stars add-on subscription, and that's what I did. Is I just did the 7-day trial. So here in a couple of days, I'm gonna have to cancel, or else they'll charge me. But so I'll talk about that in a second. But I just want to mention that it's kind of cool because Showtime offers a 30-day free trial. Wow. So I'm gonna check that out next, pretty soon, I think. Having said that, I watched 2 movies with the Stars add-on subscription on Amazon Prime.
Nice.
The first one was Misery, James Caan, Kathy Bates, adaptation of Stephen King's novel, which, after reading it, became my second favorite Stephen King book that I've ever read.
Awesome.
Yes. Very good book. And I like anytime you watch a movie that's adapted from a book that you've recently read, you have the nuances of the character motivations and the perspective of the, inner monologue of characters. You have that fresh in your mind, so it's going to dampen the adaptation for you. And Misery is no exception there. However, I did freaking love Kathy Bates' performance.
Yeah.
I thought that was just freaking fantastic. She played that, she played the character as more sweet and innocent in the beginning. Like you were kind of lulled into this false sense of security with her, that she's like, okay, that she's crazy. That she's insane, that she's going to cause harm to this character, but it's really hard not to be charmed by her.
Yeah.
She's kind of sweet in the movie. And then when, things go, a little darker for her, it's really quite, a turn, and it's like I think she won the Oscar for it.
Yeah,
and I mean, well deserved.
Yeah.
And then also I really liked James Caan. Obviously, I just love the small, the confined story of it. It's just 2 people in a house.
Mm-hmm.
Then you get the subplot with the sheriff of the town, which it's fine. I don't think that they really needed to cut back and forth throughout the entire movie for it. Just because I understand what they were going for and why they did it, but I felt like that just kind of detracted from it for me.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, I thought that it was one of the better Stephen King adaptations I've seen.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've read the book and seen the movie, and I agree. We've talked several times about how hard it is to adapt his stories into quality films, and this was one of them. I think the performances are part of it, but also they didn't try to make it more than it was. You kind of mentioned the simplicity of it, how it's 2 people almost kind of trapped in a cabin together, right, if you will, partly by choice and everything, but there's a simplicity there, and sometimes keeping things simple makes it much more accessible.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Oh yeah. So that's Misery. I really enjoyed it. And it is available on Amazon Prime with a Stars add-on subscription.
Nice.
And then the second movie that I watched with that was a movie that I hadn't seen before, written by John Hughes, Mr. Mom, with Michael Keaton. Tiny, have you seen this?
I have not.
Oh, interesting. So I think it was from 1990, and it's Michael Keaton he's an engineer for a car manufacturer who gets laid off, and his wife gets a job at an ad agency, and it's just basically playing off the gender role reversals, where he is challenged with being the stay-at-home dad while she is striving to be a career woman in a man's career-driven business world.
Mm-hmm.
This movie came out in 1983. I was way off on 1990.
Okay.
But yeah, it plays off of both of these characters in different roles that they're not used to, and that is kind of off the beaten path of their what's expected of their genders at that time period, basically.
Right.
And there is a lot of fun hijinks. There's some fun hijinks with Michael Keaton at home. Like, he becomes obsessed with soap operas. He struggles to get the kids to school on time, or to get them at school in the correct way. He becomes friends with the other stay-at-home moms of the area. It's kind of fun. There's one big set piece that I kind of thought was like, okay, this is a little too far, because it's like one of the, not too far, but it's like trying a little too hard, because it's like everything, it's like the kind of quintessential, like, okay, the stay-at-home dad doesn't know what he's doing, so everything that can possibly go wrong is going to go wrong at the exact same time.
Right.
And like, there's a runaway vacuum cleaner, and it's like, on paper it's funny, but it's also like, just unplug the vacuum cleaner or turn it off. It's not that difficult. But I did appreciate how much time was spent with Terry Garr's character, with some very, like, kind of serious problems. She deals with some serious kind of like sexual harassment problems with her boss. While also, Michael Keaton's character, also has the temptation of a, lustful stay-at-home mom.
Uh-huh.
And it actually goes to a kind of serious relationship drama kind of place briefly. And I wasn't expecting that, and I thought it was handled pretty well. And I thought the movie overall was done pretty well. I don't really have much qualms about it, except that the kind of slapstick nature of the humor didn't really go quite. It wasn't as consistent as I was hoping it would be. But then again, also, for that one scene where everything went wrong at home, there's a very quality scene with Michael Keaton in a grocery store, trying to shop for groceries. So, Mr. Mom was pretty good, and I really liked Misery. And those are the two movies that I watched on Amazon Prime with add-on subscription of Stars that I have a 7-day free trial for.
Nice.
Yep. So do you want to round us out for this week with your last bit of potpourri?
Absolutely. A few weeks ago, you and Pat from the Nerds You're Looking For podcast talked about season 2 of Daredevil, Netflix's Marvel's Daredevils. And I was jealous because I wanted to talk about it. But no, I didn't get a chance to finish it before you guys recorded that, and it took me a little longer to get it watched. And I really loved it. I've heard so many people. It's funny how conflicting it is, or how divided people are, because it's funny that people are trying to decide whether or not they liked the first season better than the second season, or the second season better than the first, which is such an awesome problem to have.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm so glad that it's divisive in a fantastic way.
Right.
It's not so much arguing as it is like, discussing.
Right.
And it's like, that just doesn't happen very often, and it's great that we're actually getting something like that.
Yeah, it's like when you were kids and you would ask each other who would win in a fight between Batman and Superman.
Yeah.
So fun. Hypothetical question. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. But I just love the direction they took everything.
Nice.
I think they aimed really high with the first season, introducing a character like Kingpin and having the primary conflict be with Kingpin. I mean, it did make sense, but he's kind of the grand. It's like doing a Batman series and having the whole first season be about him and his Joker. It's high stakes in that respect. But they concluded that well, and they, with this second season, they kept Kingpin / Wilson Fisk very relevant, which is something I didn't know they were going to do.
Right.
But I really love the way they did it. They had an impeccable knack for weaving all these stories together and interlinking everything, and all of the characters. I mean, the range of emotion and the development that all the characters go through was really impressive. And for me, it's most notably it's with Karen Page.
Mm-hmm.
She was. I think her development was my favorite part of this. She's always been a very principled character, very principled person, and sticks to her laurels and all of that. And I like the way how she's she's basically molded that into like journalistic integrity.
Right.
Having her move towards the journalism stuff, I think, was an amazing idea.
Mm-hmm.
And I just love her interaction with the main editor guy, who I don't even remember his name.
I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but I like that it was kind of the antithesis of her interactions with Ben in the first season.
Yes. Yeah. And it's a very, dare I say, cliched scenario or dynamic. You have kind of the hothead new hotshot reporter and the editor who's trying to keep him in check, but really this is kind of, it has a very very master pupil kind of feel to it. He's trying to aim her and direct her and point her in the right direction and stuff like that. But I really love that dynamic. Like I said, it's classic, almost bordering on cliched, but it didn't bother me one bit. I love the direction they took it. I think Karen Page was the most interesting for me. Although this is kind of a classic argument that people have with comic book heroes and how they hide their identities. I can't believe she didn't figure out that Matt Murdock is Daredevil.
Right.
It's like, I don't know. He doesn't mask his voice that well.
Yeah. There was I can't remember who. I think maybe someone tweeted about it, or I saw it posted somewhere. But there's a scene. Maybe they brought it up on the Nerds You're Looking For. But there was a scene where, kind of early on, where Matt and Karen are in Matt's apartment, and they have like an argument, and a glass spills, and then she kind of storms out and everything. It's like, in that situation, she is in the home of her boss, who is blind, and a glass has dropped and shattered. Doesn't even offer to clean it up. It's like, all right.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, it's a minor nitpicking thing that's just kind of probably an oversight of on the production, but it just seeing that or hearing that wherever I heard it was made me laugh quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What'd you think of John Bernthal?
Man, oh, dude, he was so great.
Right?
He was so great, and they did such a good job writing that character. I mean, they just cut right to the chase.
Yeah.
And they didn't bother. I mean, there's some origin stuff, but it's not like it was an origin story.
Right.
The Punisher was inserted into Daredevil's storyline. It wasn't. They didn't try to give him an origin, which I think was a good idea. They explained it well in dialogue and how his story intertwined with everything else was just really well done. And there's a particular scene where I think it's early on, maybe like the second or third episode of the season, maybe, where Daredevil and Punisher are in like a cemetery.
I think it's the fourth episode.
Is it the fourth? Okay. I think so. I knew it was kind of early, but they're in a cemetery having a discussion after they just got bloodied up and beat the crap out of each other. And the Punisher is recounting parts of his life, and man, it was Emmy-worthy performance. I mean, just in that 5-minute scene, I was so impressed with John Bernthal.
So good.
So good. I got really choked up.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, I almost cried at an action show. You know, I mean, he was just phenomenal. And I think a lot of the credit, obviously, tons of the credit goes to John Bernthal, but a lot of more of the credit goes to the writers. I think. Yeah. They just did such a great job molding the character of Frank Castle and the Punisher. He just had so much depth, and I mean, he seems like a very very brash character who's very he seems like it'd be easy to make him one-dimensional. Just, kind of just one idea in mind and that's it. But, he has a one-track mind, but it's because of all these things that's happened in his life, and it's because he dwells on those things, and they just explored that masterfully. So I love the Punisher.
Me too. Me too.
There's talk of giving him his own show.
I seriously hope that happens.
I'll binge it in one weekend if they
me
do.
Too.
I mean,
there's a scene with him. I won't give away the context or anything, but there's a scene in a diner where he's talking to a character, and like he's talking about it in that moment. It becomes a very strange comment on just relationships and stuff like that. Like just it's kind of a warped viewpoint and everything, but something about it was just like, this is not something I would expect in an action TV show or a comic book show. Like it has a lot of heart to it, and it's very layered, and it has a lot of different moving pieces to it because he's talking from his personal experience. He's informing the character that he's speaking to, she's getting more development out of that, and it's kind of a statement about human interaction. It's just really well done.
It is.
Man, I loved it so much.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah.
I also really appreciated what they did with Foggy. Because I don't think he was an aimless character, but I think he just really found himself in this season. He really, he gained a lot of independence, and I think in the previous season, his character really relied on Matt Murdock and Daredevil to give himself significance, I guess, and kind of feel important. But through the trial against Frank Castle, he found that he doesn't necessarily need Matt Murdock, that he's a really talented lawyer just by himself, and he has the ability to carry himself. He doesn't need he doesn't need help necessarily. I think he kind of relied on other people, but he found his independence in this season, and
absolutely,
that was incredibly satisfying to see him do that. I think it needed to happen too.
I think so too, and I love Eldon Henson as an actor.
Yeah,
I think he's great.
He really is. Yeah. So that was great. And then lastly, one of the bigger storylines was all the Hand and Elektra and
Stick.
and Stick and how they're all linked. And I'm not going to spoil anything, but that was all. Again, the intricacy of it was really impressive. I didn't really know what to think of Elektra. My only reference for Elektra is Jennifer Garner in the last Daredevil movie, which was based on what we saw in season 2 of Daredevil, was a terrible representation of the character. I was really impressed with how they made her so personal to Matt Murdock, and partly she's part of the reason why Daredevil exists, why he became Daredevil, and they made her character so important in two ways. Because she could have just been a very one-off ancillary character, as could have the Punisher, but they made her so relevant, and they grounded her. First of all, they grounded her where she had a past with Matt Murdock, which was really chilling exploration, like a very, one of those universal questions you kind of ask yourself, what would you do if you were in this situation? And they put her in that situation with Matt Murdock, and it was just really, it was interesting to see him explore that. I appreciated that scene a lot. And then the way she's connected to the Hand and the overall conflict made her even more important. And I'm just so impressed by their dedication to secondary characters. They leave no stone unturned, while still keeping their characters a little mysterious. It's such an impressive balancing act that they pulled off with all their characters in the show this season. I loved the dynamic between Daredevil and Elektra. That it showed that Matt Murdock and Daredevil, that he's still kind of finding himself, and he's made decisions, and he stuck to his guns, but he came really close to the edge a few times this season, which I think was a pretty bold choice. They were just hitting on all 8 cylinders this whole season.
Absolutely.
I haven't decided if I liked it more than the first season or not. You guys mentioned the action pieces, specifically the scene in the stairway.
Yeah.
My God, that's just
so awesome.
I just sit there with a smile on my face, like, oh my God, I can't believe they're doing this, because it's just so impressive that they pull something like that off, and it's so practical and realistic, and God, it's just the rawness of that. I hope they do that every season.
Me too.
Yeah, I hope they set that precedent where they do something super immersive and like lengthy like that and just so raw. I really hope they do that every season because that should be a staple of this show.
I agree. And they do it so damn well.
They really do.
I
mean, that's something you would expect out of a movie.
Oh yeah.
Not a show. It's got that levity to it. It's an impressive show. I can't wait for season 3.
Yeah.
It's going to be awesome.
I think I don't know if it's before season 3 or not, but there's going to be Luke Cage next.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think I heard that this year they're going to start filming The Defenders, which is the big team-up movie.
Okay.
So it's going to be Luke Cage, Iron Fist, and then probably, I assume, Jessica Jones Season 2, and then probably Defenders, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know, don't quote me on that. I mean, it might be something different, but that's my perspective on it. So
I just started Jessica Jones, also I'm about halfway through the first season,
nice.
And I'm digging it.
Nice.
So yeah, I'll report back on that.
Sweet.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that is all we have for the Potpourri, which this ended up being its own length of an episode. So
yeah.
Like we said at the top, we're gonna add the post Oscars discussion and our review of Deadpool that both have marred audio qualities. We're gonna tack that on at the end of this episode. Just listen to it probably after the end music before the pre-recorded outro. But Tiny, what are we doing next week?
What are we doing next week?
Oh, we're we're doing another Netflix Picks episode.
Okay, you're right. Yeah.
Which basically this will be the third time we're doing it. It's where we both pick a number and then we each watch the corresponding number or the corresponding movie in that slot in our Netflix queues. And then we report back and review it next week. So we're going to basically just each pick one number, and then we're going to say what it is, and then we're going to review that movie. For each one of us is going to review the movie that we pick for the other one next week. Tiny, what number?
I'm going to pick for you number 24 because today is 420.
Oh, nice!
And if you add 20 and 4, you get 24.
Okay, nice. I thought you were going to go with a like weed thing, and I'm like, I don't.
No.
Cool. Yeah, I'm not. I don't do that.
Me either.
No, 24. Okay, nice. I am going to pick for you a number that I'm going to say right now. Let's go with number 29 because we are an hour and 29 minutes into this recording.
Nice.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, this is not fair to the listeners because number 24 on mine is Black Mirror. Which, okay, so guys, have you guys seen Black Mirror? Because it is amazing, and I talked about it at length. I'm going to just skip to the next one on here because I've talked at length about Black Mirror.
Okay.
And so, number 24 plus 1 on mine is Wayne's World.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Because that's what they say in the movie.
Right.
Yeah. So number 29 for me, shocker, it's a documentary. It is a 30 for 30 called The Prince of Pennsylvania. It's about John DuPont.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. I've actually never watched any of those ESPN 30 for 30s, but I hear people rave about them all the time. So I'm looking forward to that.
That is, I'm probably going to watch that too, hopefully.
Nice.
Did you hear Pat talk about Fantastic Lies?
I didn't. I didn't get to that part.
Oh, okay. Well, I won't spoil it for you, but okay. Fantastic Lies is also on Netflix now.
Nice.
It's another 30 for 30 about the racial and other tensions that fueled a scandal in 2006 when a stripper accused 3 Duke University lacrosse players of rape. But the Prince of Pennsylvania, it's funny because Foxcatcher is one of the movies that are available with the Stars add-on on Amazon Prime.
Oh, okay.
So I may watch this with you and watch Foxcatcher.
Go for it. I recommend Foxcatcher.
Yeah. And just to make things interesting, I'm gonna randomly go through so Good, the Bad, and the Ugly was a movie that was picked for me to watch months ago.
Yeah.
Sat down to watch it 2 days ago. It's not available on Hulu anymore.
That's a bummer.
Yeah, so Tiny's going to loan me the DVD or Blu-ray?
Blu-ray.
Blu-ray. Oh, nice. Tiny's going to loan me the Blu-ray, and I'm going to watch it at some point. But, okay. So we've picked our numbers, we've picked our movies. Tiny, you're going to watch The Prince of Pennsylvania.
Yes.
I'm hopefully going to watch it too, as well as Foxcatcher. And I'm also going to watch Wayne's World. And then as I'm randomly swiping through my Netflix queue, I'm, in addition to those, going to watch... Oh, here we go. Autism in Love.
Oh, cool.
Yes, this is a documentary, a sensitive look at adults with autism spectrum disorders, depicts the complications, strains, and rewards of finding and managing deep romantic bonds. This movie was actually I believe it was at Heartland Film Festival, and I did not get a chance to see it, so I'm really looking forward to checking that out.
Nice. I've heard good things.
Nice.
It's in my queue.
Awesome. So, okay, so join us next week for Prince of Pennsylvania, Foxcatcher, Wayne's World, and Autism in Love. And stay tuned to this episode for our couple months late audio quality marred review of Deadpool and our thoughts on the Oscars. Just be forewarned, the audio isn't great, and at least, like, my energy, it was at a difficult time, and I just, my energy in that is going to be lower and all that. So,
right.
Proceed with caution. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you guys next time. Oh, and check out my bonus episode that I'm going to have out soon with Brian Davids from Film Schlubs, where we review 11/22/63, the Hulu original show, and we're going to have him back on soon for a bonus review of the first season of The Path, which is currently on Hulu. So check back soon, and we'll see you guys later.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. So, Tiny, did you watch the Oscars?
I watched all 17 and a half hours.
Smooth transition. For our listeners, he's exaggerating.
Yeah.
It was a fairly... Wow. There was a much better segue I could have made there. Let's just talk... I watched it as well. I watched probably about 15 hours of it because I fell asleep during 2 of it. I dozed off during Best Director and Best Actress, like that area of time in the broadcast. So let's just talk about our just basic feelings about how the Oscars went overall. How did you think that Chris Rock... How did you feel Chris Rock did? And I can't believe I almost accidentally said Chris Walk, which it's going to come into play later because he made a joke about Asians.
Yes, he did.
That it has gotten some backlash. So,
right.
What did you think of the overall presentation of the Oscars?
Yeah, the award shows just really aren't that great. I mean, they're just not.
Right.
Typically, occasionally you'll get a really good host and they'll make it work. But I never put a lot of faith in that, and I thought it was okay. Definitely one of the weaker shows, I think, of the last probably 10 years. I don't know if all of that falls on Chris Rock's shoulders. I think the stuff that we could detect, at least that I could detect, that was genuinely his contribution to the show was pretty funny. I'm a fan of his in general. He's kind of loud and obnoxious at times, but I think he has pretty on point jokes, and I like him for the most part. And I liked a lot of his stuff, but they really beat the race controversy involved in this year's ceremony to death. I mean, they kept bringing it up. I think it made sense to bring it up in the monologue because you have to. You can't just let it hang there. You have to address it. But right. He brought it up in the monologue, and then he brought it up at the first break, and then he brought it up at the second break, and then he was still bringing it up at the end of the show. It's like, okay, we get it. That's, I understand. And it's just like, it was kind of lazy. It's like, why are you still beating this to death? We've already addressed it. So I was just ready to get over it and move on to some better comedy. But It could have been better.
Yeah, I agree completely. And I mean, I've always felt uncomfortable about the whole Oscar so white controversy because I'm a white guy in Indiana. I don't, I can't pretend that I understand what it means to be, affected in that way. To have my ethnicity misrepresented in such a way. But having said that, it almost felt like the constant barrage of jokes at the expense of that controversy almost felt a little diminutive of it, of the importance of it, or of the effect of it, basically. And I know that wasn't. I know for a fact that wasn't the intention at all. And Chris Rock, it's obvious that it was very important to him. I really liked what he said. Kind of, I don't know if it was toward the end of the broadcast or not, but about how they just want, how black people just want an opportunity, how minorities just want an opportunity to have the roles that are so lauded upon by everyone else. And I'm totally on board with that. But just the constant barrage of it, I mean, like bringing up in the monologue, and then like it got to a point where they did the Girl Scout cookies bit, and I was like, finally, something different, something lighter, something cheery. So yeah, it really rubbed me the wrong way. And I mean, I'm not a big Chris Rock fan. I thought he did fine, but just the subject matter just didn't. The Oscars became about that, and granted, the Oscars are supposed to be, I guess, this kind of faux prestigious kind of thing, but it also just I felt like that was more of a platform for something that has been talked about ad nauseum and discussed, and they've promised the Academy has promised that they're going to make changes and everything. It's like, okay, at what point do you keep beating a dead horse? I get it that they were wronged, or that there's been injustice toward minority actors and stuff like that, but it's still an entertainment thing. It's still the broadcast as a whole is still created and broadcast with the express purpose of getting ratings and getting airtime and advertisers and everything. It's just, if you're going to be that off-putting, why? I don't know. It bothered me quite a bit. So in closing on that, I think that there does need to be changes with the Academy and the voting procedures and all that, and I think that there needs to be some kind of change, because it's even in terms of the lack of minorities nominated, and in terms of other things about the Academy, I feel like the Oscars are not indicative of the quality of movies throughout the year, and that includes their exclusion of minority actors and performers and filmmakers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So there does need to be a change, but I mean, don't spend 4 hours just yelling about it,
right,
when they're celebrating, the year in film.
Yeah, I actually watched Selma last week, which was one of the movies that was mentioned in this controversy last year.
Right.
And, from that standpoint, I agree with the controversy. I think David Oyelowo should have been nominated for Best Actor. I thought he was fantastic.
Really?
Martin Luther King Jr. And I think that movie could have used a couple of nominations more than it got. But I don't necessarily think it should have won any. I took some issue with some of the choices for the story of the movie and stuff like that, but overall it was a good movie, so I understand why people were upset about it.
Right.
And I agree with them to a certain extent. So yeah, I'm with you on that.
Mm-hmm. I still have not seen Selma, so I can't speak to the quality of that movie, but yeah, it was definitely apparent that there was a lack of. I mean, we get into the point where we're just arguing semantics, or arguing over who should have got nominated and whatever, but it is more, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not to the point where I'm not a person who can really speak with authority over it.
Yeah.
So
again, we're a couple of white guys in Indianapolis.
Right.
Yeah.
With a kick-ass podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, let's talk about the winners and everything. I don't have the list like in front of me right now, but
me either.
I do want to point out, and this, like we said, we're getting back into the swing of things, guys. So one of the things that I noticed during it was that I was very much not that invested with it.
Yeah.
But one thing that really got me excited over it was that Ex Machina won Best Visual Effects.
Yeah.
That was the one award where I actually was like very much excited about it, and I actually tweeted about it. I'm not one to live tweet anything, so like I really only tweet when I'm, I have something to say, and that's the first time in the broadcast where I felt like I had something to say. Mm-hmm. I was really excited about that because that's a great movie, and I love to see visual effects of such a subtle nature being celebrated on such a national stage and on such a big venue, the most prestigious way possible, and I freaking love that about it.
Yeah, I liked that win too. I was a fan of that.
Yeah. Did any other awards stand out to you?
I was just ecstatic that Mad Max won 5 Oscars.
Really?
That's just awesome.
Yeah.
Just because I think, first of all, I think it deserved every Oscar it got, and secondly, just that kind of movie's not really in the Oscar wheelhouse. You don't really see a big action movie with a bunch of cars blowing up even mentioned in the Oscars, let alone winning 5. That just really blew me away. And I mean, like, especially like best costumes, who else was even close to that? Like,
that's true.
Were there any of those other movies? I mean, like, yeah, I'm sure The Danish Girl and Cinderella had some really impressive costumes, but like no one's ever seen anything like what was done in Mad Max. Like it's just so unique and one of a kind, and just so much creativity goes into that.
That's true.
I thought that was just like, as they were announcing it, I was like, who else could possibly win this besides Mad Max? And so I was just really happy with all those wins. I thought Mark Rylance, I think that's his name, for Best Supporting Actor, winning for Bridge of Spies was kind of cool. I mean, I didn't have a lot. I wasn't very invested in that category, and I think it was just kind of cool to see. I think he was the best part of that movie.
You saw it?
Yeah, I did see it.
Okay.
Yeah. We can talk about it another time, but I think he was the best part of that movie. I think he outshined Tom Hanks, which is a huge accomplishment in and of itself. I liked him a lot in that, so that was kind of a fun win. I liked seeing Spotlight win the Oscars that it did because I'm such a big proponent of that film, and that's had such a emotional resonance with me. So
sure.
I was really glad, and I picked it for I think both those categories. So I was really happy it won those. I think it was a pretty good night overall. I loved seeing Leo win.
Yeah,
Wanted to see him win for a long time. So
yeah. I saw, or by the way, I don't mean to be so dismissive of Mad Max. I thought that it was a fantastic movie, a great spectacle. I don't think it deserved to be nominated for Best Picture.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, maybe it deserved nomination. I would have been very, not angry, not upset, but I would have been just a little irritated if it would have won Best Picture, because I didn't think it was Best Picture worthy.
Okay.
So that's where that kind of dismissive remark came from.
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah. I do think it definitely deserved the awards it got. And Mark Rylance, I agree. He was the best part of that movie. That movie was, we can talk about it later, like you said, but I was kind of bored by it, or I wasn't as invested in Bridge of Spies as I was hoping to be. But he definitely stood out, and I like that they awarded such an understated and I guess subtle performance as Mark Rylance is in Bridge of Spies. Like seeing, I mean, I thought that Mark Ruffalo was great in Spotlight, but like, that they're only going to show, like, they could only show that one clip from Spotlight.
It's true. That's very true.
And yeah, so I was happy to see that. I kind of wish that I probably would have preferred to see Tom Hardy win because I mean his role in The Revenant was just fantastic to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, so overall I'm pretty happy with pretty much all the winners. Really. I'm trying to think of other things. I didn't get a chance to see Brie Larson win because that was when I fell asleep. But I mean, I was just happy to. I was happy both her and Leo won because both were fantastic.
Yeah, she was fun to watch, just like all night, because she was just she had a really good time. I mean, that's what you're supposed to do with the Oscars, and
right? She
really looked like she was having a great time.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just so happy that Leo won.
Me too.
What did you think of the Best Director win that went to Alejandro Iñárritu?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, for that's like his 5th Oscar, I think, in the last 5 years. I can't refute it really. While I took some issue with the direction of The Revenant, I can't take it away from him given the challenges involved with that kind of movie.
Right.
Battling nature for every second your camera's on is just. I'm not a filmmaker, but that just sounds like hell to me. And he pulled it off beautifully, so I can't really take that away from him. Honestly, I kind of wanted to see George Miller win.
Yeah, me too.
That would have been great. Or Tom McCarthy I think he may have been my pick. I don't even remember. I love what he did with that movie, keeping that story on pace and on track throughout that movie was a huge accomplishment. I think he did wonderfully. So that was a bit of a stacked category for me, but I love everything Alejandro Iñárritu does, so I can't. I'm happy to see him win anytime.
Yeah, I was surprised. I guess surprised to see him win. It's deserved because, like you said, that movie was fantastic. But I definitely think that of the nominees, I would have liked to see George Miller win, of course, and I think that he deserved the win more than anyone else, really.
I agree.
Yeah, and I mean that's a shame that he didn't win, but I mean, what are you going to do?
Right. He could be back. You never know.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
And Emmanuel Lubezki won for Best Cinematography.
Right.
Which was his 3rd year in a row from Gravity and Birdman and now The Revenant. Which, I mean, very, very well deserved. I mean, the cinematography in The Revenant was just outstanding, really. And the fact that they used all natural light was just... It's mind-boggling the way that they could do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
With the movie. I'm trying to think of the other big ones. Director, cinematography, actor, actress, supporting actor. Did we talk about supporting actress? I know that...
Alicia Vikander won. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Alicia Vikander. Yeah,
I was happy with that because I picked her in our episode.
Nice.
I wanted her to win just because I'm excited about her future. I just want to see what she does, and this win is only going to help her land more roles and stuff. So I'm excited about her.
Me too, and I was very happy to see her win. And I mean, granted, of the movies she was in last year, Ex Machina was the best for me. And The Danish Girl, people celebrate her performance in The Danish Girl, and I mean, she did a great job and everything. I just think that the movie wasn't that good, and felt a little bit Oscar baity. For it. But I was just happy to see her because she had such a fantastic year last year.
Yeah, she did.
And I mean, granted, that's not really what the Oscar's for and everything, but it's nice to see that she got that attention and will hopefully lead her to more big roles and great roles in the future.
Agreed.
Having said that, should we just dive into Best Picture?
Let's do it.
Because I think that's about it. Best Picture, Spotlight.
Yeah, which I think was kind of a surprise for a lot of people.
Oh yeah, both of our movie of the year.
Yep.
Which I just bought the Blu-ray, so I'm gonna check it out again.
Nice.
Soon. I'm really. It's weird to say that I'm excited to see it again because it's such a tough watch. It's such a tough subject matter to tackle, but
yeah.
I'm so happy that it won because that movie had such a great presentation of such a very difficult, such a difficult topic.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the presentation of it was just handled with such care, and it was astounding. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who did you expect to win?
I kind of thought The Revenant was going to win. I was really surprised at how much momentum Mad Max had. I was like, dang, if it wins, that'll be nuts.
Yeah.
But I didn't think it quite had the chops for that. So I was thinking The Revenant was going to win. And I think that would have been a fine choice. I wouldn't have anything against that. But Spotlight was my pick, and I'm glad that it won.
Same here. I definitely thought The Revenant was going to get it. As much as I enjoyed Brooklyn, and to a slightly lesser extent, Bridge of Spies, I didn't think that they were Best Picture worthy.
I didn't think Bridge of Spies was.
Yeah. So I think that they did a good job with that.
Yeah.
For sure. Anything else about the Oscars?
I mean, I think maybe the performances are worth mentioning. The song from Spectre, The Writing on the Wall, which ended up... Did that win Best Song?
It did.
It did, and yeah, that's right, because Sam Smith won.
Right.
That was... I think Sam Smith is an awesome singer. His voice... The way he controls his voice kind of blows me away. I liked his performance, and then... Lady Gaga's performance was incredibly powerful. I have not seen that movie, and... Yeah,
what was the deal with that performance? Because I kind of fell asleep during it.
Well,
or before.
The film is about survivors of sexual assault and rape. And that's what the song is about, and I actually watched a little bit of the red carpet, and they interviewed Lady Gaga, and she's actually a survivor of sexual assault herself.
Really?
So it was incredibly personal for her. And obviously it meant a lot to her, so I really respected her performance, and she's just an amazing talent. I had no idea until her Oscars performance last year. I was like, man, she's actually a really good singer. I had no idea. She just rocks every performance she does, and it was evident on Sunday night. However, that song is really like... I really don't like the song that much. I think it's like really vanilla and like a very it has like kind of very generic lyrics.
Okay.
I was not specifically I wasn't very impressed by the song itself, but the performance was incredible.
Interesting.
I'll say that.
I saw that Brie Larson, I think it was Brie Larson, hugged every one of the victims that they had there.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was kind of amazing how they... I also liked the appearance of C-3PO, R2-D2, and BB-8 to kind of give a nod to John Williams for, his 15th Oscar nomination?
I don't know.
Something like that. They mentioned it in the show. I was like, holy crap.
Right.
He's up there with, like, Meryl Streep and stuff like that. So that was fun.
Nice. For the listeners... Lady Gaga performed this song "Till It Happens to You," which was written for the documentary "The Hunting Ground."
Right.
So I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, I definitely want to see the movie.
Yeah, as far as performances, I mean I don't really have an ear for that kind of thing. So I mean it was they were fine. The ones I saw, like I said, I fell asleep during it. I really liked Dave Grohl's tribute for the In Memoriam segment. I thought that was really well done.
Very good.
Yeah. So there was a controversy over Chris Rock.
Yeah.
And I guess he had... There were some Asian children up on stage with him, and he said like it was a joke at the expense of the stereotypes of Asians being good at math, and I think one of them even had like a Jewish name, and I'm just going from memory from what I read, because I think this was while I was asleep. This is the worst recap of it, but anyway, he also said the big one was that you guys. He said something to the effect of, "You guys can be outraged, or he's like, you guys can be outraged, but go ahead and just tweet about it on your phones that these kids made for you."
Oh yeah,
which. I laugh. It's kind of funny. I mean, I have kind of a dark sense of humor, but that's also wildly inappropriate
Pretty much.
For something that you've spent hours talking about the lack of diversity and how wrong it is for the Oscars to exclude minorities, like just to go and make that much of a joke at the expense of for using stereotypes and stuff, like that rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so I don't know whose decision that was or who pitched the idea or why it wasn't shot down immediately, but
yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, we can kind of wind down. Is there anything else you want to say?
Well, in that same vein, there was the whole Louis C.K. presenting the Oscar for Best Documentary Short.
I don't remember what happened.
Really? Oh, well, it was really funny. He was basically talking about how it's the most deserving category because no one makes a dime off of those movies because it's like a documentary short.
Right.
And he was saying like, this is the most important thing that will ever happen to these people.
Oh my God.
Or something like that. And he was like, you guys these people make incredible movies about really important subjects, and so do the rest of you, but the rest of you get rich from it. These people don't. He was like, this Oscar's going home in a Honda Civic tonight. It was really funny.
That's fantastic.
It was a little insulting, but it was so like true and funny that I don't think, some people were a little disparaged by it, but I thought it was hilarious. I love Louis C.K. anyways,
oh yeah.
So
wow, yeah. I think season 5 of Louis is going to hit Netflix this month. I might try to go through all the show.
Nice.
Yeah. So overall, I think that we were. I don't know. I personally was not really that invested with the Oscars this year, despite having seen, I mean, probably in the grand scheme of things, in terms of the amount of movies nominated and the amount of movies I saw of those movies, this is probably the best year I had, or the best positioned I was to be invested in the Oscars, and they still couldn't do anything for me.
Yeah.
So, and granted, I mean, that could also be because of circumstances in my personal life at the time, because I've been going through some stuff, but it still just didn't. It couldn't reel me in, and that's a shame. And I don't know if it was because of the Oscar so right. Wow, Oscars so white. I'm so sorry. Controversy and them beating us over the head with it. Not even beating us over the head with it, but beating it down so much throughout the entire thing that it lost its. Frankly, it lost what importance it had as a conversation tool. Really, it turned it into a joke, and I don't think that's for something that is so substantial to the industry as a whole. I don't think it's something that should be joked about so heavily and made a gag of, because it's just what if this was the high... Well, I don't want to make that comparison, but I mean, it's just, it's a shame.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. So having said that, Tiny, we were supposed to record a review of Deadpool 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
And unfortunately, we couldn't do that given the circumstances of stuff happening in my life.
Right.
So regretfully, I had to cancel the recording. And now it's 3 weeks after we've seen the movie. I've been to hell and back, so
yeah.
The movie isn't that fresh in my mind. So we are going to go ahead and review it as best we can. Just kind of a general laid back kind of conversation about it. So
yes.
What did you think of Deadpool?
I freaking loved it, like pretty much everyone else in the world. Because pretty much everyone else in the world has seen it. It's going to seem like totally reactionary that we're reviewing this now, because we planned to record about it like days after it came out.
Right.
And I saw it opening night.
Yeah.
I went to a special pre-screening of it, actually. So we're not just doing this because it turned out to be a huge hit and a ton of people have seen it, and it's the highest grossing R-rated movie all time, all that stuff. That's not why we're reviewing it. We're reviewing it because we thought it was going to be funny, and it turned out to be really good.
Also because we didn't have a lot of prep time for the Oscars discussion, so we doubled up.
True. Yeah. But
that's a joke. I'm kidding. Go ahead.
I really love the movie. It hit the mark so perfectly. It reminded me a lot of, I think a lot of people are making this comparison. It reminded me of Guardians of the Galaxy because it was something, that comic book movies are just a part of the movie going season every year now. And that's fine. I love that. But this set itself apart. It's so different from any other comic book movie, and it's something refreshing that I think people in that demographic wanted to see. I fall into that demographic and am totally one of those people. It made it was so fresh and new that it was bound to be a hit, and I'm glad it's found that audience. I really loved it.
I did too. I really, really, really liked the movie. It was fantastic. It was such a fun movie. Fun is the word that I keep throwing around for it when I think about it. And I mean, it's apt because it was such a blast to watch it. I thought that they did the right amount of fourth wall breaking and running commentary from Deadpool. I thought that was handled so well, and with just the right amounts of timing and such great comedic timing, really. The inclusion of the X-Men characters, Colossus and the other character that was in the movie, I thought that was handled very well. It was a great way to kind of bring Deadpool into that universe with that, while also affording him time to kind of poke fun at it and the conventions of it and the convoluted nature of it at times.
The meta-ness of it.
Oh yeah, I thought that was handled very well. And I mean, the storyline overall of the entire the plot line of the movie, really, I kind of thought that it was, it wasn't formulaic, but it was still kind of it wasn't anything too memorable to really write home about. There was part of it was an origin story. Part of it was a damsel in distress story. Part of it was, not really discovering his powers, but becoming Deadpool. And it was just kind of a little bit of a tired retread. A little bit of a tired retread of formula, but kind of packaged in this incredibly meta and very enjoyable package with an R rating.
Yeah.
Which isn't bad. I mean, that definitely made it very very enjoyable and fun. Like, that's the word I keep coming back to, is fun. And I won't fault it for that at all. It
definitely was formulaic. I totally agree. And it had a very generic villain who wasn't really well-rounded, wasn't all that interesting, really.
Right.
But was pretty menacing. I mean, he was fairly menacing. I'll give him that. He was definitely an evil person, without question. But Ajax / Francis is not going to go down as a legendary villain in the Marvel universe.
Right.
And this whole slate of Marvel movies we're getting, I don't think he's going to be particularly memorable. But the movie was focused so much on the origin story, which I wasn't necessarily expecting. I thought it was going to kind of rush through that. But it handled it really well. It was all paced well. I mean, I don't think there was a lot of dwelling on things. I thought it was all handled just perfectly, really. I loved all that. 5 out of 5 chimichangas for that.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, I'll see it again. I'll own it, and I'll gladly see it again. So it was a lot of fun. What did you think of the action scenes and the kind of, the R rating, really?
Yeah, I thought they were great. I mean, that leaked footage of when he attacks that, convoy.
Yeah.
That's like, that whole scene is just so amazing. It's just so well done. And you're laughing your ass off, and you're shocked by the visuals of it, and it's appropriately gory. I just think there was several instances of action that were similar to that and incredibly enjoyable as a result. again, the R rating really set it apart from a lot of that stuff.
Right. I enjoyed that too. I thought it was fantastic. I thought the movie was great. The movie was great, and I'm curious where they'll go from here. And I don't know where they're going to take it with the sequels, or how or if he will be factored into the X-Men universe properly. But I'm super excited for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to be meshed in with the X-Men at all. I think they've kind of come out and said that he's not really going to make appearances in X-Men movies.
Okay, that's fine.
And I understand that, and to a certain extent I agree with it. But I think it's going to be pretty detrimental to X-Men. I think a lot of people are going to...
Really?
Because everyone's just loving Deadpool so much, and he's so unique and having such a huge impact that he's not going to be melded into the universe, and people are going to be pissed about it. And I think having something so fresh and new is going to make even the good X-Men stuff feel a little dull. And I don't know. I think it could have that impact, but time will tell.
It could, and I think that Deadpool came out at a really unique time with comic book movies as a whole, because it's very much like it's at a prime time for these kinds of movies. I mean, we're right on the cusp of getting oversaturation of comic book movies, because DC's starting their universe, Marvel Cinematic Universe is going strong. You have X-Men kind of rebooting their franchise, or at least course correcting it to the point where they can create more movies, and you just have a ton of stuff. So we're like right about to the point where I feel like where the bubble might burst soon.
Yeah.
But we're not quite sick of it yet.
Yeah.
And then Deadpool also has this meta aspect of it where he's, it comes at a time where media we're consuming is like it's very in to be meta, and it's very hip to be meta. I just watched Fuller House, and spoiler for the feed, I think we're going to have a bonus episode about Fuller House in the coming weeks, with a new guest on the podcast, actually.
Yeah.
But anyway, there's even in Fuller House, there are these little winks and nods, in fourth wall breaking, that's very meta. It's just something that is in right now, and for Deadpool to come out at a time where we're getting tons of comic book movies and tons of meta content across the board, and to do both things so successfully and in tandem with each other, and be such a complete package in that regard, the plot, the kind of weaker plot elements notwithstanding, is something to be really, no pun intended, marveled at.
Yeah.
I think that's something that should be really appreciated and noticed, really.
Agreed.
What that does for future Deadpool movies, like when we get oversaturated with comic book movies, which is bound to happen.
Yeah.
That remains to be seen, but it's nice to see that they had a successful first movie.
Totally. Some of the meta-ness was a little, again, to kind of bring back the phrase, kind of beating a dead horse with the references to the first iteration of Deadpool that Ryan Reynolds played in the X-Men Origins Wolverine movie. I thought the first couple references were funny, but then it just kept going, and there's a reference to Green Lantern and stuff, and it was a little too meta, I think. I don't know. I would have appreciated, I think, one reference for each thing, but
sure.
I don't know. Maybe I think they just did a few too many.
Yeah, I'll have to see it again to get a better idea, and that's one of the things that I kind of wish I would have had the chance to see it again, because there's no telling how I'll feel about this movie seeing it again, because a lot of it is a lot of it is kind of new to audiences. It's something that we haven't really seen in a traditional comic book movie, and I mean, that first viewing is going to be just astounding to us, and it's makes me curious how it'll hold up to repeat viewings.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, is there really anything else we need to talk about Deadpool?
I don't think so. Like I said, 5 out of 5 chimichangas.
Yeah.
Really loved it.
Nice. I really enjoyed it. I think I rated it 4 stars. I don't even know if I put it into Letterboxd yet or not. I'm so behind on that, but
yeah.
Circumstances, but yeah, so alright, so yeah, that about does it. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for listening to The Obsessive Viewer, presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. You can find more of our episodes at ovpodcast.com, and you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Stitcher, or your preferred podcast app. The Obsessive Viewer's theme song is An Eclipse of Events and is provided by Loudlike from their EP Mistakes We Must Make. You can find that and more great music from them on iTunes and like their Facebook page at facebook.com/loudlikemusic. Any and all feedback on the podcast is encouraged. You can email the hosts individually at Matt, Tiny, or Mike at ObsessiveViewer.com, or send an email to the podcast in general at podcast@ObsessiveViewer.com. Check out the Obsessive Viewer blog at ObsessiveViewer.com, where we post movie and TV reviews and the occasional editorial about the business of entertainment. You can also like us on Facebook at facebook.com/TheObsessiveViewer and follow us on Twitter at ObsessiveViewer, at ObsessiveTiny, and at IamMikeWhite. If you want more obsessive content in your life, check out our sister site, ObsessiveBookNerd.com, for book reviews, author spotlights, and a general celebration of reading. Finally, if you're philosophically curious, check out Tiny's side project podcast, The Secular Perspective, which explores the concepts of faith, religion, and existence from the perspective of secular hosts. You can find that at thesecularperspective.com and subscribe to the podcast on the podcatcher of your choice. Again, thank you so much for listening. We love you. Be excellent to each other.